There's nothing out there.
There is something out there. And I need to kill it.
What's going on, everybody? It's Ted, aka Steady, with the Countdown to the Geeks. We have another very special interview today. It is all about the wonderful suspenseful thriller Wild-Eyed and Wicked, and we have not only the director Gordon Foxwood, but we also have cast members Stefanie Estes and Michael Sommers. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, nice to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Glad you could join me today. There's so many compelling and interesting aspects of this film that I really enjoyed. I am Latino, and in my culture and heritage, we have a variety number of mythological creatures and folklore that deal with horror and suspense, and they're all nightmarish type things that people would tell their kids when they're going to bed. But this film dabbles in
Sleep well.
I know, right? And this film dabbles in I think Celtic folklore. Gordon, is that correct? What inspired you to sort of write a film that dealt with these folklore and these mythological creatures?
Sure. Well, the fun thing was that although I actually love drawing on different kinds of myth and folklore, I ultimately had to craft my own specific beast for what I wanted and needed from the story. There actually was a time where I was drawing more specifically on some just generalized European so-called demonography that you find in lots of different texts, but things like the Nuremberg Chronicle, which is actually one of the pages that Michael's character holds up in the book, is from the Nuremberg Chronicle. So again, it's sort of inspired by, but I ultimately didn't do something exactly based on, even though that would have been fun, but it wouldn't have quite worked for what we needed. Folklore, of course, we love. Has there ever been like a Chupacabra movie? I'm sure there has been. That would be really fun.
I am aware of some independent movies that have dealt with it, but there's so many different variations of what it could or may not be. So it's kind of wild when you start diving down that rabbit hole, if you will. Michael, you play the estranged father Gregory, who's in this very sort of dark place. He has this long personal battle with different elements, alcoholism, issues in his marriage, dealing with the loss of a family member. Tell us about kind of what it takes to sort of build this motivation for yourself, putting your mindset into this individual who's trying to recover from all these traumatic events in his past.
It's funny. A lot of the times that my initial answer is about taking things away as opposed to adding things. It's almost like letting myself be to a certain degree. I think I have sadness in my life, but I push it aside. And if I let it be, there it is. And I always use the word of redemption, but really what I'm talking about is somebody who's come to a point in his life and he's like, oh, I'm not happy with I can't say I was a good guy in this situation, like as a father, what an important relationship, and I'm analyzing myself and coming up short. That's tough.
It's really tough, and it's such a unique experience to kind of witness two people who kind of want to get together. Of course, I'm talking about Molly's character, Lily. There's that need of one another, but the walls are still up.
Yeah.
And so the dialogue is so intricate and delicate, and between the two. Tell us about working with Molly during those scenes. Y'all just executed a lot of those elements really well, that struggle between a father and daughter.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I commend Molly for she called me up right away as soon as I landed on location and said, "Let's go get a beer." And that really helped to make sure that there's this funny thing going on when you're acting as adversaries, and if you don't have this trust, which you can't have without knowing the other person to a degree, it's like, oh, he said that as a character, I know, but that sounded a little real. Is he talking about me or the character? And so that's a big thing that I think actors, you sort of assume that the other actor is fine with all of that because they're an actor, but we're also very sensitive people. So that was an important aspect of it, and I think it's always something about here's what I consider to be an olive branch. Are you accepting it? And they're like, well, that's a crappy olive branch. What? They're just problems when you're not. I think that's what's going on with the characters aren't necessarily trusting each other.
Yeah.
And to make sure that the actors trust themselves first is imperative.
Stefanie, I gotta ask you, you probably have nothing but very intense scenes in this movie. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about your experience. You also probably had maybe the only prosthetics in this film. So maybe first talk to me about that because I love hearing people about their experiences with makeup and prosthetics on.
Yeah, we were so lucky to have a fantastic makeup team that I don't know, made that, when you're getting stuff glued on your face, it's laborious and oftentimes quite uncomfortable, but they, made it so easy. And I think they did a really good job working with Gordon and with some of, I think the producers weighed in a bit about like the sort of um, transformation that Sylvia goes through. Like initially it's, the self-inflicted wounds. What do those look like?
Right.
How do they grow on her face? How deep do they get? Then, her hands, how they start to transform. And then when she, without spoiling anything, when she goes all the way, what that looks like. I mean, Gordon, I feel like you had a lot to say about what that.
There definitely were some unique challenges always with prosthetics, especially anything dealing with the hands, which there's quite a bit in that, and doing that again at late hours and even in combat situations. So yeah, quite a lot of fun things there.
Gordon, I gotta ask you, I really enjoyed the composition of the music in this film. There's so many different, I think, genres you're tapping into, both music that you would expect, dealing with suspenseful tones in a horror film, but then all the way to like house music.
Yeah.
Where do the ideas come from to sort of incorporate these widely, drastically different sounds throughout the film?
Well, the first thing is that they're inspired by my own musical tastes and love. I'm drawing on because I love both what we generally lump into the whole term of classical, and that's kind of a nonsense term. Just usually just like if it's old enough, we call it classical. But yeah, orchestral, let's say orchestral music, and then absolutely EDM and its many different derivations. Which and I wanted to bring that to the film, to the style, to the character of Lily. Because again, it's like she doesn't sit around listening to, movie soundtracks. She sit around listening to, EDM while she's training for fencing, all this. And so like when she's hyping herself up and bringing, battling to bring things that she loves into this, she's going to bring her own musical tastes. So that was a unique challenge for Kyle Niedak, who was the composer, and it was great. And, someone I'd known for a long time, and I knew that he could absolutely do the challenge of giving us, big orchestral, emotional music, horror, ambience, and then also EDM fun times.
It's sort of it's not jarring, but you can right away tell you're kind of experiencing something for the first time, seeing either electronic or house music in a horror film. It just doesn't happen. And so when you kind of experience that, it's just right there and it's in your face. And so I
Oh,
found it very intriguing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
no matter what. No, sorry, I keep going.
no, no, please.
I say, yeah, the fun thing about house music, electronic music, et cetera, is that, there's actually so far, there's like, it's such a big piece of culture, and yet you don't tend to find it in a lot of movies because, again, it's usually like such powerful associations of like, okay, now we're like at a rave kind of thing. And that's why some of my favorite movies and series, use it. And when you do come across it, it's always going to be jarring, but hopefully I find always in a good way.
I'd
Uh,
love to chime in with just a little behind the scenes anecdote.
please.
We have some pretty intense uh, scenes in the woods at night. And one of my favorite memories from shooting is like, lunch was called probably, I don't know, at like 3 a.m. And Gordon puts on some EDM and we're just all like going dancing. And it was like, in my mind, I was like, what a fun, as you were saying, Gordon, juxtaposition of like, we like in this horrific, terrifying, creepy woods. And now suddenly we're just all like grooving. Awesome.
I'm gonna assume, Gordon, you've been to some music festivals where elements like that have taken place in the woods late at night, EDM music, because I've heard stories about that happening.
Cool.
So I'll go with that.
Yeah. The fun fact, actually, I've been to plenty of raves and concerts. I've not yet gone to a music festival. I cannot wait to go to a music festival. I very much plan on it with my wife and friends. But yeah, gonna happen.
I have a question for both Michael and Stephanie. This was, to me, it sounds like such a short shooting schedule. 16 days sounds unheard of, especially for this type of genre of a film. Did it ever kind of seem fast paced to you, or did it just kind of seem kind of easygoing and just well paced for everybody on set? Michael?
Well, it definitely seemed fast paced, but uh, oddly, that it was it. I was going to say easy going, but all that I meant that it wasn't like this, uptightness to get things going, and that was. I like the fast pace gives you impetus and drive and necessity, and then that you're not like get it right now. That was absent. Uh, then that just opens it up to be a good thing.
Stephanie, as you as well, you had a lot of intense scenes with Molly. Just what is your experience working with Molly one on one?
It was an absolute delight. Um, yeah, she's like such a wonderful and giving actress. I think Michael touched on this earlier. Like, we have some intense scenes towards the end, and I think she's the type of actor that creates an atmosphere of trust and an atmosphere of camaraderie. And our conflict is a bit more physical. So, uh, yeah, she definitely, I think we had a reciprocal trust in each other, which was essential to have those moments. Like Michael was saying, you can't um, go there with another actor if that baseline of trust hasn't been established. And yeah, we were able
and
to.
and quickly
Yes, yes,
because of what you said, the short shooting schedule.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds unheard of, but it doesn't ever come across on screen that there was anything sort of either missed or anything sort of not taken care of. So Gordon, bravo to you and your production team for just putting out just a tremendous film and executing on all fronts. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. It's the
One
goal.
last question for everybody here, and Gordon, this is something that you had talked about in some of the press notes. This movie, even though it is a horror film, it does deal with, in some aspects, mental health. And I think there are some underlying themes about mental health and necessarily not how to solve them, but maybe just some ways that people can try and battle and for themselves and try and overcome their own struggle and their own demons. So Gordon, what is the messages that you really wanted to tackle, and why was it so important to incorporate those elements into this film?
Well, first of all, the question of what are the messages are something that I actually try, because like internally, I tend not to have a exact like I'm saying this. Sometimes
Right.
I do. But I think that I like to live in the questions and the explorations. And I think that that's the most, it just feels correct. And there are times where I want to in my personal life be like, I think this. But I don't always think that when I'm in the world of writing that I'm quite as interested in saying do this, do that. So there's absolutely explorations here. There's absolutely ideas of maybe what might be a good way of investigating different kinds of building paths to recovery. Absolutely. And what does it mean to identify and recognize the existence of an issue as opposed to always thinking it's unreal. Absolutely. But still, I think that I always like living in the places of exploration more than message.
Michael and Stephanie, sort of the same question, but maybe for your own characters, the struggles that your characters both deal with are a little separate from Molly's, but altogether, I think that there are some definite things that people can take away from it. So, Michael, is there anything that you kind of wanted to talk about regarding your character's struggles?
Oh, absolutely. I've dealt with it with people that I've known, and some with myself, I would say too. And my character is dealing with alcoholism and depression, and I always look at those as quite related. And I think one of the things that we're talking about in the film is passing it down through a generation or trying not to pass it down. And that's a hard thing to do. I was thinking to myself the other day that it's more about how do I not pass it down? I mean, that's obvious, but what I mean by that is that the passing it down might be easier, that the more automatic and almost happens. And I'm talking about a father who's very stern with his daughter, and then the daughter is very stern, maybe inappropriately so, with her daughter. That's that sort of thing. And the message regarding this, I think we've all talked about this and said that the first step may be by far the most important one, which is to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And to say, oh yeah, this is me too, and I have to deal with it. And how you do that, I'm not sure. It's probably personal, up to you how you deal with it.
Stephanie, sounds like you agree a lot with
Oh
Michael
yeah,
said.
I don't know if I could say it any better. Like, yeah, we've talked about this a bit. Just yeah, that generational trauma, the trauma that's passed down by not acknowledging the pain, the suffering. And I think Gordon said it, like the monster is real, and even if it isn't an actual monster with fangs, like the pain is real, the monster is real. So I think what I would hope people take away from the film is like being empowered to acknowledge that and not being afraid to say, yeah, like I have pain, like I suffer. And then hopefully through that acknowledgement, much like our lead character does, like find a way, pick up a sword, find a way to go into battle against it and hopefully emerge on the other side victorious. But if you don't, that's okay too. Like it's a journey.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you all for joining me today. Wild Eyed and Wicked will be out on TV on demand, digital, and cable on demand June 11th. And you can now pre order on iTunes. Thank you to Gordon, Michael, and Stephanie. It's a tremendous film. I think audiences are really going to enjoy it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you so much.